Liberal Democrat spokesperson Paul Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I thank the Secretary of State for her advanced sight of her statement. May I also welcome the member for Orpington to his new position. The Lib Dems welcome the Minister's statement that performance has improved and commuters and businesses are obviously relieved that industrial action has been curtailed. It is, however, disappointing that the unions were not required to agree any meaningful improvements to productivity as part of the settlement. Clearly, however, we are not out of the woods, or perhaps I should say the tunnel, yet. Under the Conservatives, delays, cancellations, overcrowding became commonplace. Last year, over 55,000 rush hour trains were either partly or fully cancelled. This was a 10% rise on the previous year, and the worst of any year since 2019. So whilst the latest news is welcome, there are many miles left to go on this journey. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government's policy of nationalisation, as the Minister herself concedes, is no silver bullet. Earlier this year, the Office of Rail and Railroad found that 4 of the 8 least reliable operators with the highest cancellation rates are public. Meanwhile, the 3 most reliable operators with the lowest cancellation rates were private. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, can I ask the Minister 3 questions? 1, what steps she is taking to ensure that the worst rather than the best private operators are nationalised first? Secondly, where performance under a private operator is of a higher standard than the public sector, will the Minister consider extending their contract? And finally, given the still shocking level of accessibility on much of the network, can I also ask the Minister for an urgent update on the stalled Access for All programme and when it will be back on track? Thank you.
I'm very grateful for the honourable gentleman's statement and questions. To confirm, we are working with the trade unions at the moment on productivity improvements. We are absolutely clear that some of the practices that are currently in place on the railways are not acceptable, and they are not fit for a modern, efficient railways. There was a side letter, an agreement to work through training improvements in the pay deal, and we want to make sure that that is absolutely delivered. But under the previous government's approach, not only did they not fail to deliver any workforce reform improvements, they presided over the longest industrial dispute in our railways history, costing the taxpayer and passengers hundreds of millions of pounds. He's right to point out that cancellations are high in the currently publicly owned TOCs. That's not least a result of the fact that the ones already in public ownership were already the worst performing, and we need to look at how they've improved under public ownership. But the real benefits will be brought about under Great British Railways when we are truly able to integrate, track and train and deliver those improvements. We'll set out the schedule for bringing the private TOCs into public ownership once royal assent has been achieved of the public ownership bill, but the right balance has to be struck between both performance and return to the taxpayer, because we're spending hundreds of millions of pounds in dividend payouts and management fees. He's absolutely right to raise the issue of accessibility and access for all, which has not been good enough under Network Rail, and I'd be very happy to write to him about specific stations in the programme overall.